Hello, everyone. Welcome to Get the Gist podcast, where we delve into the stories of industry leaders shaping the future. I'm your host, Ruban Phukan, co founder and CEO of Good Gist, which is built to help busy professionals save time by using AI agents to automate routine tasks like email triage, scheduling, data entry, research, and more. Today, we are excited to have Brennen Grone with us. So, Brennan is an executive vice president of sales at Rainbow, where he's leading the charge in transforming commercial insurance for independent agents. With deep experience across companies like Brightway, Attune, and State Farm, Brennan brings both operational excellence and a heart led leadership style to the table. He is a mentor, a proud dad of four, and someone who leads with purpose and unwavering integrity. Thrilled to have you here today, Brennan.
Thanks, Ruben, and thanks for the nice intro. I really appreciate it. Excited to be here.
We would like to start with your experience in the whole insurance domain because you've worked with a large number of organizations and you have built really deep expertise in this field. So I'm curious to start there, right? So how have you seen the insurance world evolve over time? Any key insights that you'd like to share from your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting how rapidly we've seen insurance evolve over the past 10 years. It's also, I have to say, it's crazy to say I've been in the industry now more than 10 years. I still feel like a kid, even though you mentioned I have four kids of my own now. So I remember I grew up in an insurance family. My grandfather was a State Farm agent. My dad is still a State Farm agent here in St. Louis. And I always said I'd never get into insurance. It sounds really boring. And so here I am. When I got out of school, I started at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which was very insurance adjacent, renting people cars when they needed an insurance claim. And as I got into agency with State Farm, the market across the US was pretty soft. Rates were low. People were really competing on price across both personal lines and commercial lines, and carriers were eating up business. As I got into the independent side of agency, the market was still pretty soft. I vividly remember there were carriers that were incentivizing personal lines book rolls, which is a big thing of the past. Personal
Yeah.
lines rates are so high right now. The market's really volatile. And, you have to convince a carrier to take a little bit of business on the personal line side. Whereas, back in 2017, I was getting offers from every legacy carrier I was appointed with. Hey, we'll give you extra commission to roll this book over from this carrier. So just watching the landscape evolve as we've seen, our weather patterns and climate change has been very interesting to see. Now, some of that I know is driven by global reinsurance concerns, but a lot of the reinsurance concerns we see are driven here in the US between unforeseen things like the freezes we've seen the past several years down in Texas. We just got out of a crazy wildfire season in California. The poor Southeast is getting battered by hurricanes and flooding that we've never seen before. So insurance will continue to be what we'd call a hard market. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. When you get into a hard market, from my perspective, you find out who can really sell and add value to customers and who is kind of just out there price shopping on customers' behalf, hoping they buy. And so as you and I have gotten to know each other and speak a little bit more about technology and automation and specifically AI, what I found is, the best agents I know, the best companies I've worked with have found the best ways to leverage technology as it's emerged more in the insurance space to provide more productivity to their people so their people can spend more time on what they do best.
Yep.
And that's how I really look at the evolution of technology in insurance is, and I think that's what we do best at Rainbow. The past decade, we've seen the emergence of this sector we'd call insurtech. And there are a lot of great companies that I think started things off. I've worked with a lot of great companies, either as an agent or as an employee. And I like to think that Rainbow has not fallen into what I call the insurtech trap. And in my mind, the insurtech trap takes two paths. One, companies will say, we don't need people involved. The shortest application will win, and our platform, our technology can do all the underwriting, no human intervention needed. And that's wrong. Insurance is a people-driven business. We need specialized people with industry level knowledge in the verticals they're playing in, specifically on the underwriting and sales side, to really deeply understand the nature of the risk they're considering, what business they're thinking about staking millions of dollars on here if a claim goes wrong, and ultimately to understand their agent partner and help them win. So, hey, I think that insurtech sometimes gets a bad name. And I know it's an objection I have to overcome out in the field as we're bringing on new agency partners of, well, we don't just want to deal with that thing where we log in and we can't deal with the human.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
get to have a lot of fun and talk about my team and our excellent underwriting and service teams where our technology is powerful. But I do think that our technology is here to amplify our specialized people force,
Hmm.
not to hide them in the background behind a veil.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think Brennan, that's a very important point that you mentioned. Is that any new technology that is coming in for it to be successful, it's not about replacing people, right? So it's about how can you empower people to do more and do better with that technology. So I think you make a really great point there. I understand that at Rainbow, right, it has found a sweet spot between like speed and complexity in underwriting. So, and you have mentioned a great point of driven empowerment of your team. But what other operational philosophies or habits, so to say, that has helped you personally and your organization as well to maintain that balance at scale, right? Because I mean, it's easy to have both speed and manage complexity on a smaller scale, but as it grows, it becomes a big problem. So how are you handling that?
Yeah, great question. Well, I'll talk maybe about me personally a little bit with some of my habits, and then happy to talk about Rainbow too. So I think that as easily accessible AI became available, I think I told you initially, I kind of felt like I was cheating using it. I don't know why, but I had to really overcome this mental barrier of this is a good tool for me, and I'm not doing anything wrong using this. And once I did, my productivity jumped significantly. So I'll tell you my initial implementation. If anybody's thinking, well, gosh, I'd like love to get in on the AI craze, but I don't even know where to start. I did something very simple and I started using just like an easily accessible AI tool to help me format things. And, I take copious notes throughout the day. I have like a running Google Doc wherever I'm working, whatever I'm doing. It drives my wife crazy. We have one personally too. And I take a copious amount of notes. I'm always typing. I'm stopping myself from typing as we talk right now. But even in external meetings, I'm just like outlining the notes, taking notes throughout. It helps me remember information to write it down or to type it out. So it's a really beneficial habit for me. But I end up with all this really unstructured, these thoughts. It's just a feed from my brain into this document. And so what it allows me to do with AI is I can, dump blocks of these rough outlines into a tool like ChatGPT and say, can you help me structure these thoughts into a proposal that I can edit? And it takes a lot of the burden off of me of formatting things, making them look clean and tidy. And it allows me to run an external meeting, take a copious amount of really rough notes, and turn around and 8 to 10 minutes later, shoot out a really well structured follow up email that it's everything I documented. It's all of my work. I just didn't have to take the time and the energy to go through and format, which it's a skill I have. It's something I'm capable of doing, but that could take me 10 minutes that I don't need to spend on that activity. So that's how I got started there. And then I started learning about other ways to adopt that technology in everyday life, whether it's through different prompts that you can use or, using it for things like, a second set of eyes, if you're working late at night and maybe your partner in crime at work isn't available, they're not online,
Yeah.
you got a pretty good sounding board sitting right there on the other screen. And you could say, "Hey, poke some holes in this argument. Can you argue against me or help me identify objections I might face?" And next thing you know, you're talking to your friend, your AI friend a lot. I actually nicknamed my ChatGPT instance Kyle, so I call him Kyle. He recognizes the name, and we just, Kyle and I have long conversations sometimes at night, making sure what we're putting together is sound.
No, no, that's a really amazing case study of actually how can you treat AI as a partner and not really. It's not about saying that okay, let AI do all the work. It's more about how can I use AI to help me structure my thinking, to help process information better, or whenever I need to brainstorm and have ideas. So I think that's an excellent use case around that, right? So at an organization level, I believe that you use a lot of AI yourself in your organization in the underwriting process as well, right?
We
So
do
can you
so.
talk? Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
we use it across several sectors of the company. I'd say recently, we've added a small AI agent force at the top of the funnel for us that helps us with some outbound prospecting. That's been very successful. I think I told you the other day, I was listening to one of the calls. We've been kind of iterating with it over time. And we had someone being maybe a little difficult with the agent, and he sighed on the call. He kind of did and I stopped the recording. I listened to it a couple times. It was just such a human interaction. I was blown away by how quickly it's learning and iterating on what we're teaching it, and kind of the recordings we're giving it to learn from. So that's something we're doing on the sales side that's been successful. We do also use it in a couple of different underwriting work streams. So one implementation we've done recently is really just helping our underwriting team get access to more information about customers that we're underwriting in real time without having to go and do all the research themselves. We know, kind of like I said with formatting, right? We know they're capable of doing this research. They've been doing an incredible job of it, but we were able to format all of the information they would typically pull with this tool we've been using. And it's been a huge value add for us, and has added a lot of productivity. So when you talk about operating at scale, and my kind of plant the flag statement of saying my stance on AI is it allows the humans and the business to do what they do best every day. That was the perfect implementation for us.
That's really great to hear. And I think that's a great inspiration for a lot of organizations who are out there and people listening here who are yet very uncertain about where AI fits into their organization. So I think that's a really great point that you make, Brendan. There. So from the AI perspective, let's dive into a more core decision making framework of your business, right? So I understand that Rainbow has recently even entered into very niche market like beauty and wellness. I've heard about that, or I read that somewhere recently. So when you expand into this verticals, right? So how much of that is being driven by human research or your field agent feedback? And what kind of, let's say, data analysis process goes in determining which markets are lucrative?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So, this won't necessarily apply to the beauty and wellness industry. We're really excited about that launch. We our flagship product has been our restaurant program, but we've already seen great success in this beauty and wellness space, and we'll be expanding in states soon, which we're really excited about, and we're getting some traction there. As we've looked forward to plan additional programs, which, I we'll definitely have more than two programs out in the next 18 months. As I went and did a lot of that planning, it really was, Ruben. It was a blend of kind of what we've talked about so far. My head of insurance and his name's Bill. He's one of my good buddies. And I think it's the first time in my life I've ever said one of my best friends is an underwriter, which is crazy. But we structured a scoring model to go through and look at different industries and segments. And once we had the scoring model established, we did exactly what you had mentioned. We absolutely did customer level interviews with some of our top engaged agencies, or even if they're not top engaged agencies, some of the largest partners that we work with that could be top engaged partners over time. And we really wanted to understand what was difficult for them to place, what they felt like there was a hole in the marketplace or an industry that was distressed and made it challenging for them to place business. We took a lot of that information We did a lot of external research as well, where I used some AI companions to help really look through some different data sources I had access to, along with just public information on the internet, which I think can be, we should pause here and say, searching things online is as easy as ever, but there's so much information out there to sift through now that it can be really helpful to have an AI companion to help you process all that data quickly.
Mhm.
And from there, I had a meeting with our executive team in January, and I wanted to basically structure this scoring model and go through and structure a lot of different industries through the model. But that was a heck of a project. And it was January 1st. I had the meeting the following week. We were all getting together, and I was like looking at this big pile of work I had to do at the beginning of the year too. And so I got on a really cool tool. I built an app, which is crazy to say as a sales guy because I never thought I'd build an app. My buddy Brett works at AWS, and he was like, "You got to try this. You could do it." And I was like, "Okay, if I could figure it out, anybody can." I plugged in a ton of data. I gave it my spreadsheet. And I said, "Hey, can you help me score all these industries?" And about an hour later, everything was scored. I looked through it all. There were definitely tweaks to make. Okay, it wasn't
Yeah.
perfect, but it took what probably should have been 20 hours of work for me and knocked it down to about 4. And I was hooked. Let me tell you, I said, like, I really got to use this more. That was definitely the moment where I realized using an AI tool is not cheating. And it really let me look over all the data it pulled, right? And a good example of a data source would be I wanted to know how many golf courses and country clubs there were in the United States of America, what the size of that market was, and then what insurance companies played in that space. I knew of some, but I definitely didn't know of all of them. And so I was able, with the help of some different AI tools, to pull a really comprehensive list, look it over, refine it down, make sure it made sense, and put together a really productive scoring model that helped our team have a much more productive conversation. And like I said, I was able to do it not in 20 hours, but in about 4.
Yeah. And that's another really very amazing case study of using technology to even expand into markets, which is very, very interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Brennan.
Absolutely.
So let's switch over to a topic which is that you speak really passionately about, right? So you've been talking about mentoring and uplifting your team, right? So let me ask you, how do you create or how do you personally create like growth paths for your early sales hires in your company? And especially with all these new technologies which is coming in, like AI helping sales teams and others, right? So how do you encourage your team to really adopt that and become more efficient in their work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I'll back into it and say that I was blessed along the early parts of my career to work with great sales leaders and have some great mentors that I think really poured into me and taught me that if you have someone that believes in you, that will coach you when you're doing well or when you're doing poorly, and be consistent and patient with you, that you can become a top performer. I think we don't hear this message enough. Nobody's successful on their first, second, or third try. The people that find the most success, they fail a lot and they get up and they keep pushing. So, as I've gone about, building out and structuring teams, the first team I really built myself that I kind of built from scratch was at my independent agency here in St. Louis. And I opened that agency and I had this big retail space over in Des Peres. It's here in St. Louis County. I had several desks out. And on the first day I opened, it was just me in an empty office with a phone. And I built up enough premium over the first, month or two that I was able to make a hire, and I hired a producer and I really poured into him. And that relationship had to go both ways. We would have kind of like planning and growth meetings 3 mornings a week. And he'd come into the office early and meet me before the phone would start ringing. I just realized my virtual background went down, but we would actually use that whiteboard right behind me and we do all this planning. My girls drew me a rainbow to hang up there for calls. So thanks, Alden and Ellie. And we would just do all this planning. And, I was in the office with him. So if he was on the phone, I'd be listening and I'd kind of be walking around and he'd get off the call and what do you think went well? What do you think we could have done better? We'd workshop a little bit on the whiteboard and we'd be off to the next one. And I was able to build that team up over time. And I think the first big thing I learned was what my team here in St. Louis and in the US did best was deal with our insureds and our prospects. There was something helpful about dealing with people that were in your geography. If somebody was talking about, I got in a car accident over at this intersection, I knew what they were talking about. I knew where it was. I knew how that was structured. I knew how to help them with the claim. But a lot of times my team was bogged down with things like paperwork, entering policies into a system. And so we made two decisions. One, I made what I think was a very wise decision, and I hired two offshore team members, and they were very helpful in providing efficiency to my business at a lower cost than it would have been to hire them onshore.
Yeah.
The even better decision I made is I paid for a Zapier account. And that was the first time I'd really tested out automation. It integrated with this CRM that I had purchased, and a lot of the data that either team would have been entering, I was able to automate and create a flow in between four different systems we were using that we were required to use, and it cut our data entry time by 75%. It was a huge value add to the business. Zapier quickly became my favorite bill to pay. And even though it broke all the time, because I'm definitely not an engineer, I was not building things right, it was always worth it to go in and look under the hood and fix things and get things running well again. So it's kind of my first experience really leveraging technology for efficiency, and it was a success. So when I sold that business and I got to the last company I was working at, I was very open to what kind of tech tools could we look at integrating to our team or our daily workflows to provide efficiency. And now that I'm at Rainbow, and I've again, built up a sales function from scratch, and I'm very proud of the work my team is doing. The work is never done. We're still iterating. The team was really just started, the beginning of January, but we're off to a great start. And I think that we've been able to leverage a lot of different technology tools to help us be more efficient in our day to day. And this time around, what's been really great for me is those weren't an addition to our day to day. Those were part of the foundation that we're building. And that's the beauty of, I think, how solid this AI and tech space has gotten. Is, when I started in insurance, there were just legacy systems out there. There wasn't much that was cutting edge and new. And now there's so much like emerging and solid technology that's relatively new in the industry that we know it's very reliable and is here to stay. And so I've been very confident integrating a lot of these different tools and workflows into our day to day where I wouldn't have been prior.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So there's an interesting thing that you mentioned, right? So you have seen on both side of the world, you have seen on the agency side as well as the insurtech side, right? So given the level of automation, right, and it's really commendable about the tools that you have actually figured out and used. Are you in your current role as you work with agencies right now at Rainbow, are you putting together any structure to help them also start thinking around automation, or is Rainbow doing anything to help the agents automate some of the things that they're doing?
I love that question. It isn't something we've done yet, but it is something that we plan to do. I'm actually working on some content right now. I think you could tell it's something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah.
And the thing I love most about what I do right now, specifically where I work at Rainbow, but also just being in this insurtech space, is you can tell I'm very passionate about our agency force. I was a part of the agency force. I owned an agency. I've trained producers for many years. And what I love most about that is the best agents are really set up and focused on serving their customers and understanding their needs very deeply. Because insurance is really tricky, Ruben. I mean, essentially, all we do as insurance is we sell people PDFs and a promise that we'll pay for things when they go wrong. We'll pay for something on the worst day. And so you really want to be focused on and work with those agents that are highly focused on doing the right thing for their customers, structuring things properly, helping them think of things they wouldn't think of, exclusions, bad things that could happen, and making a plan for it, along with helping them run safer and more loss conscious businesses, right? So yeah, I think that the passion for me is and always will be the independent insurance agent of whatever scope and size. And as somebody who was what we'd probably call like a mom and pop size and style insurance agency owner for many years, I am so excited over the next several months to be bringing out some content specifically tailored to the agency force on how to be implementing things like automations. What kind of AI tools would be most helpful to different agents of different sizes, whether it be helping you comb through unstructured data, whether it would be helping you clean up a lot of data sources you have within your current systems so that you can see what's going on better and how to best run your business. Most importantly, I think that a lot of agents focus on just overall growth. And I think what a lot of our agents or the smaller agents I talk to on a regular basis miss on is they really want to be a jack of all trades. When the phone rings, they want to say yes.
Mhm.
And I think by leveraging AI properly, really gaining a better business intelligence landscape of your book of business, agents can quickly have that aha moment of, well, I didn't even realize it, but this is what we're best at. And there's, huge addressable market within the states or areas that we're licensed. And we should really be more niche focused on these verticals
Yeah.
because we'll be able to serve more clients. If we can serve more clients well, we're going to scale up our revenue. We're going to be able to hire more people, pay our people better, and make this a more desirable place to work, which in turn will help them serve more customers well. So to me, that's especially for the small to mid-size agent. It's really leveraging AI to understand the data you have better, make smarter decisions, and going from being a generalist to a specialist.
Yeah. I can already see how valuable that would be for a lot of the agents there. So really look forward to you launching that soon.
Thanks.
So I think it has been a really amazing conversation, Brennan. Thanks for sharing the really valuable insights and some of the things that you have done which is like outside the norm, right, which typically people don't think of, right, is really inspiring. So before we wrap up, right, so the last thought from your side, right, so like you have mentioned that insurance industry is extremely difficult and it's becoming increasingly more challenging with all the different things that are happening around the world, right, so from natural all the way to like geopolitical reasons, right? So amidst that, what makes you a lot more hopeful or excited about the future of insurance, right? So what is the thing that you think that this would be a game changer for the industry?
Yeah, awesome question. Well, I think what makes me hopeful, and to maybe counter that would say, I think everyone's fear about AI and technology is that in the here and now and in the very near future, the next 5 to 10 years, humans are not replaceable. People want to work with people. And the thing that makes me hopeful about insurance is by and large, the industry is full of people that want to do the right thing. They operate with high integrity, they care, they put value in the relationships they build, the insureds they're building trust with. And I'm excited to be in an industry that will continue to be people driven in the future. We're going to keep using technology tools. They make us better and more efficient every day, but the people are the driving force behind what we do.
I could not
Now,
agree more.
yeah. So I think, that's what gets me out of bed every morning. That's what makes me excited and what makes me think, maybe my kids won't think insurance is boring and will want to get into it when they're older too.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been really great talking to you, Brennan. Thanks for joining me on the show today.
Hey, it was a pleasure, Ruben. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. And thanks everyone who is listening in today. If you want to learn more about what Brennan is doing and the work that Rainbow does, please do visit their website and connect with Brennan on LinkedIn. And thanks again for joining. And we look forward for the next episode where we'll talk to more industry leaders. Thank you so much.